Hey everyone, and welcome to What Did I Miss?, where today I'll be breaking down all the Easter eggs and references from the 6th episode of the 4th season of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled Parth Ferengi's Heart Place. The title of the episode is a reference to British comedy horror miniseries Garth Marenghi's Dark Place that starred Matthew Holness and Richard Ayoade and was about a lost fictional TV series from the 90s. The episode begins with a couple of Ferengi going through a weapons cache that they have been ordered to destroy. The Ferengi are a race of aliens that first appeared on the series The Next Generation in an episode titled The Last Outpost, and were created by the man who originally conceived Star Trek itself, Gene Roddenberry. Initially, they were designed to be the main foe of the crew of the Enterprise D, much like the Klingons were on the original series, as the Klingons were designed to be a reflection of the US tensions with Russia during the Cold War. The Ferengi were designed as a reflection of the excess of capitalism during the 1980s. Herbert Wright, the man who wrote the screenplay for the episode The Last Outpost and who helped Mr. Roddenberry design the Ferengi, stated that he designed them to be a species of profit-obsessed, ruthless aliens, which created a stark contrast between them and the crew of the Enterprise D, who had no desire or need for money. However, when the Ferengi were introduced on screen, they came off more like angry gerbils than serious enemies, which led to the development of a new big bad for the Enterprise D crew to face, who eventually became the Borg. The Ferengi were then given a proper redesign and brought back on the next new Star Trek series after TNG, Deep Space Nine. Instead of jumping around in loincloth, the Ferengi now were more akin to shrewd businessmen and were legitimized in large part by actors Armin Shimmerman and Max Grodenchik, who not only played the brothers Quark and Rom on the show, but were also instrumental in the development of their characters. Max Grodenchik reprises his role as Rom for this episode after Armin Shimmerman reprised his role as Quark last season on Lower Decks in the episode Hear All, Trust Nothing. As the Ferengi go through the weapons, they stumble upon what looks like a missile that they refer to as a Genesis device. This is the MacGuffin that Khan Noonien Singh was able to steal from the Federation and then detonated in an effort to kill James Kirk and the crew of the USS Enterprise in the film The Wrath of Khan. It should also be noted that before this mysterious ship appeared in the 4th episode of the season, Something Borrowed, Something Green, members of an Orion ship were also going through a cargo of stolen weapons. This may line up with my ongoing theory about this strange craft and its origins. If you're curious about my theory about this season's villains, please check out my weekly podcast, WDIM News, which comes out every Monday. You can check out the link in the description of this video. The Ferengi voiced their frustration about the fact that Grand Nagus Rom does not want to sell these weapons for profit. The Grand Nagus is for all intents and purposes the king of the Ferengi Alliance, and throughout most of the series Deep Space Nine, this role was filled by a character named Zek, played by actor Wallace Shawn.
Inconceivable!
While Zek was your average Ferengi ruler for most of his life, he was eventually convinced to reform many aspects of Ferengi culture by his new love, who just happened to be Quark and Rom's mother. This led Zek to transfer his power as Nagus to Rom in the 7th season episode Dogs of War, due to Rom not living or acting like an old-school Ferengi. Rom had a very interesting character arc on Deep Space Nine, where he started out working in his brother's bar while raising his son Nog, who was played by Aaron Eisenberg. Unlike most Ferengi, it was perceived that Rom did not have a head for business, which led to his wife leaving him and his son not having much respect for him at first. However, Rom shows that he is something of a miracle worker when it comes to fixing things around the station, which leads him to pursue his own career working under Chief Miles O'Brien as an engineer. It is also during this time that Rom begins a relationship with Lita, who is played by Chase Masterson and who also reprises her role for this episode. She began on the series as a Dabo girl at Quark's bar, but eventually becomes a strong voice for workers' rights and reform. After they decide to marry, Rom's history of being a non-conventional Ferengi leads Zek to believe that he is the perfect choice to lead the Ferengi into a new era of reform and selects Rom as his successor. I'm obviously skipping over a lot of great things that happen on Deep Space Nine concerning the Ferengi, like Nog's whole character arc, as well as the events in some classic episodes like the Magnificent Ferengi. But needless to say, that the Ferengi are a race of aliens that really benefited from their second life on Deep Space Nine and the efforts of Armin Shimmerman and Max Grodenchik. On the Ferengi ship, a member of the crew quotes the 60-second rule of acquisition, which is also stated in the Deep Space Nine episodes Rules of Acquisition and Little Green Men. The rules of acquisition are the governing laws of the Ferengi culture, and all Ferengi are required to memorize them. They were written by the first Grand Nagus over 10,000 years ago, and there are believed to be at least 285 rules in total. The USS Cerritos arrives at the planet Ferenginar, which was visited frequently on DS9 and is said to be always raining. When they do, the admiral in charge makes a comment about the planet Moab 4. This planet was shown in the Next Generation episode titled The Masterpiece Society, which was about a colony of genetically modified humans living within a biosphere on this desolate planet. Ron and Lita enter the room with a Hyperion servant who looks very much like Zek's servant, Mehardu, that appeared in 7 episodes of Deep Space Nine and was played by actor Tiny Ron Taylor. When the crew arrives on Ferenginar, there are advertisements everywhere for a soft drink known as Sluggo Cola. This drink first appeared in the Deep Space Nine episode Prophet and Lace.
Drink Sluggo Cola, the slimiest cola in the galaxy.
Mariner goes to meet a friend of hers whose name is Quimp. This character was first introduced in the first season Lower Decks episode titled Envoys and is once again voiced by Tom Kenny, who is most well known for being the voice of the character SpongeBob SquarePants. After Quimp learns of Mariner's promotion, he says,
"I never thought you'd dig your way out of crashing that Oberth."
He is probably referring to an Oberth-class Federation ship. The first Oberth-class ship seen on screen, the ill-fated USS Grissom, was shown in the film The Search for Spock. Mariner asks the waiter for a drink called
and a Dagger of the Mind on the rocks.
Dagger of the Mind is the name of an episode from the first season of the original series in which Captain Kirk is tortured on a penal colony. Back on the ship, the negotiations seem to hit a snag when Nagus Ram only wants to talk about baseball. This is a reference to the classic DS9 episode Take Me Out to the Holosuite, in which members of the crew play a game of baseball against a team of Vulcans and where Ram is responsible for their only run of the game. This may also be a reference to actor Max Gradenchik's history as a semi-professional baseball player before he started his career as an actor. Boimler becomes obsessed with Ferengi pop culture and starts binging every series he can find. This is very similar to how Neelix and Kes got sucked into watching soap operas while monitoring the Earth when they went back to the 90s in the Voyager episode Future's End. Meanwhile, Tendi and Rutherford are trying not to actually become a couple while appearing as a couple on the planet. Their host at their hotel, Parth, is voiced by comedian Dave Foley, who has had a very successful career in television, but who I will always remember as one of the kids in the hall, which is a Canadian sketch comedy group consisting of Mr. Foley and 4 other men. Dave Foley has professed his love for Star Trek many times before in interviews, but he is not the first member of the Kids in the Hall to appear on a series. That honor goes to Scott Thompson, who appeared in the Star Trek Voyager episode titled Someone to Watch Over Me. They are taken to a restaurant named Quark's Federation Experience Bar and Grill, which is a reference to the Quark's Bar at the Star Trek Experience in Las Vegas, Nevada, which was an immersive attraction that was open from 1998 until 2008. Eventually, Captain Freeman is able to trick Grand Nagus Ram into a bad deal, which impresses him enough to agree to a more standard contract. In doing so, he quotes the 8th rule of acquisition.
Small print leads to large risk.
This rule was never actually quoted on screen, but was used in a book that was published in 1995 called The Rules of Acquisition that was written by DS9 show writer Ira Steven Behr. Boimler has not left his hotel room and tells Commander Ransom that all he has been doing is watching Ferengi programming. Ransom sends in Ferengi security to rescue him, and the security officer is using the same kind of energy whip that the Ferengi used in their first appearance in the Next Generation episode, The Last Outpost. Well, that was everything I saw, but let me know in the comments if I missed anything. Thank you very much for watching. Please do not forget to like this video before you go, and I'll see you next time on What Did I Miss?